I take it everything is going well?
Yes, Lord Weenie, but not a single bolt is clearing your threshold.
Knowing what not to use is as important as knowing what to use. It's all according to plan.
I see.
Well, I have a new task for you. I want you to make a Weight Weenie Tier List. If you can succeed with this, we can discuss the next step in your training.
Tier list. I think I could do that. Yeah.
Excellent. Just remember, Arrow is everything.
What?
Nah, I'm just fucking with you. You should have seen your face. Now, get to it.
Right, so welcome to a night of fun with lists. You might be thinking, wait a minute, are we back in 2021 where tier lists was all the rage? And I actually had the tier list going back then as well, but I got to edit that video, and by the time it was done, like half of the stuff on that list was pretty much irrelevant. So this tier list is more focused on how I rank all the parts on the bike build myself, not any specific parts per se, but I'm sure I will not be able to keep myself from mentioning a few parts here and there. But this way, I hope this list will be relevant more than a few months. I also give two weight targets, that's my thinking at least. One that's more suited to if I'm just building a bike, chasing that 6.8 weight limit, and one where I go a little bit more crazy, a little bit more nuts, cookie in the bonk. Still rideable though. I think those show bikes are, well, it's always fun to look at, but yeah, if there's not rideable, then there's no point for me. But I think you will get the picture. So let's get into this. So the first thing we need to get out of the way, if you're planning a Weight Weenie build, stop looking at complete bikes. That's crap. So complete bike, F tier. First off, the specified weight they give for their complete bikes are never correct, and also the parts that will hang on that frame, they will never be the correct ones, they will not be the right sizes, and it will definitely not be the lightest weight either. Now with that out of the way, I might start with something a little bit controversial maybe, or a hot take when it comes to the frame, and I'm gonna put this in C tier, I think. Yeah, C tier. And the reason I say that is there's other stuff you should think about before weight on a frame. Fit, for example, and of course looks. I would say those two are both more important than weight. Of course, we want to say weight where you can, but say even if it's a 1200 gram frame, you could still get that bike down to sub 6.8, no problem. Case in point, my custom titanium bike here. If you've seen my previous videos, this is what is it, 1400 grams frame, and this bike is way below the UCI weight limit. So yeah, but if I were to give you some target weights, I would probably say aim for 1000 grams for a normal build, like just hitting that UCI weight limit. And if you're going for that Uber build, I will probably aim for that 700 gram mark. And even if you don't go for that Uber build, that will give you some leeway on other parts of the build. Now fork, it's, yeah, you get what you get. So I will put that in C tier as well. And when it comes to custom bikes, there's not really that many forks that's super lightweight for like aftermarket stuff. Aiming for like 400 grams once it's cut and done, you should be good on your way to hit that 6.8, no problem. For the Uber build, if I could, I would try to find a fork that I can get to that 300 mark once it's cut and done. That might be hard to find, especially for like custom bikes, but yeah, something to aim for. Now, something that's probably not that controversial is wheels. And that is a pretty clear-cut S tier for me. Not only can you save a huge amount of weight there, but it's also pretty much the part on the bike that will actually make your bike feel different. If you have a really light wheel set, there's nothing that makes your bike feel as good as a featherweight wheel. And with the options we have now, especially from the Far East, we don't even to break the bank. And even if you want to flirt with the aero dorks, there's no excuse for running around in a 1600 gram wheel set these days. Even if you want that 50mm deep wheels for some weird reason, you can still get sets in 50mm depth now. There are like just over 1200 grams, which is pretty good compared to back in the days. For a complete wheel set, for a simple 6.8 build, 1200 gram set should get you there without much trouble, I think. If you're building a Uber Weenie bike, it will definitely want to get below that 1 kilo mark. And if we could, for sure, below that 900 grams. Now, if you're looking at the Far East brands like Far Sports, Light Bicycle, etc., where you can actually build your own, so to speak. Of course, they will build it for you, but you can choose your hubs and stuff like that. For a standard build, I will probably try to find a hub that's around 250 grams. And for the Uber Weenie, we have the extra light hubs. We have the non-plus hubs if you're we call it a center lock person. But I will say, like, if you're going for the Uber Weenie build, going for 6-bolt would be my recommendation, because all in all, that will be a lighter set up, a complete wheel system. Say if you go for the extra light hubs, for example, personal favorite of mine, I think that's, I have it written down here, there's 196 grams for the set. You can get lighter center lugs hubs. The non-plus ultra is, I think I wrote it down as well, 187 grams, but that's center lock, which means you won't be able to get as light of rotors as you can on 6 bolts. All in all, the 6-bolt solution is still lighter. But yeah, each to their own. For hubs, I will put them in A tier. If you're looking at rims alone, for the normal build, I would say 300 grams. And for the Uber build, if you can get that to 250 grams, then you're pretty golden. Same there, A tier. When it comes to spoke, I don't really have much to say now. Of course, carbon spokes, the fiber thingamajig spokes, they are the lightest ones out there. But yeah, I have ridden steel and now carbon on these, and I don't know. I can't really form an opinion on them yet. I would say, yeah, if you have to go with steel spokes fine. If anything, it kind of rides better. I'm just gonna leave that tier list for now. And like I said, going for a 6-bolt solution will end up being the lightest possible. And for me, I don't look further than the Galfer rotors. They work so good for me personally. I don't really look at anything else. That's my go-to. For me, it's A tier. They're pretty affordable. I would say for me, it works as good, if not better, than the Dura Ace rotors. And yeah, I would say they perform a slightly tiny bit better than the carbon tie rotors as well. Of course, mine was the older version. They're updated now, so I haven't tried those. But for that price, I probably never will either, especially for a part that is kind of consumable. But the Galfer rotor for me, specifically, A tier, 66 grams for the 140. That's good. All right, so tires. Now, since this is my list, I'm gonna go with my takes and everything. I would not go below 28, even though if you put like a super light 25 clincher now, you can save a huge amount of weight actually. But for me, I will not go below 28, and I probably still stay tubeless, even though you can go lighter if you go inner tubes. Specifically TPU tubes, of course. I will put tires in A tier as well, because you can save quite a lot of tires, and there's a lot of like unit variation. So if you can like take a scale with you to the bike shop and find the lightest one, you can actually save probably around 30 grams, depending on just in the same model and brand, just by picking the absolute lightest one. But for me, if I'm looking at the 28mm wheel, I will probably aim for that at least 280 or below, hopefully. If I'm building Uber one, I think the lightest 28mm tubeless tire I've had this far is just 245 grams. So say aim for the 250 gram weight there. Like I said, there's easily lighter tires, especially if you size down more. But yeah, my line I draw at 28. Right, so Cockpit, and this was one of those things I had in my original tier list, like that became irrelevant pretty quick, because back then, even if you got like an integrated cockpit, you were kind of locked into that. There were not that much opportunities to tune your stuff. But now you can basically get an aftermarket integrated cockpit fitting anything with a little bit of help on 3D printing and stuff like that. So now it's gone from like a C tier, and I will probably put this in B tier at least, I think. Yeah. And if you're just looking for the normal lightweight build, I will probably aim for 280 grams. I definitely want to be below 300 grams for a cockpit integrated one. And once I'm looking at the uber lightweight build, I will aim for 220 gram. And that would be, in my case, 38 wide and at like either 110 or 120 stem. In this case, here we have the Avian Paris, which I did a video on the flareograms. There it is. If you want to check that out, you can. Of course, we have Darimo as well, which is around the same kind of weight, but yeah, have a different kind of shape and stuff like that. So I'll go through that in that video as well if you're interested. If you're going for a separate handlebar and stem, you always had a lot of options before, and a lot of cheap options as well. We all know the Uno stem, a personal favorite. But I would say if you're going for the lightweight build there, aiming for 100 gram stem would be nice. If you're going super uber weenie, getting that down to around 80 grams, so just above that, would be a pretty nice solution. I will put stems at A tier as well. For a separate handlebar, I'll probably put that in B tier. I think the stem is a more... Of course, it depends on where you start, but swapping like a 250 gram stem for a slightly tuned Uno stem for a fraction of the cost and get that below 100, it feels more fun than handlebars. But anyway, I digress. If I would look for a handlebar for a like standard lightweight build, I would probably aim for 160 grams if I could. And if I'm going for the Uber Weenie, that will shave off another 30 grams, so 130 grams if I could. I think the ones that below that will be Darimo or something like that, like 125 or something like that you can find if you're looking hard and have some deep pockets. Yeah, I think we can leave the cockpit there. Actually, no, we should not leave the cockpit there, because some underrated places to say wait. Bar ends. Goddamn, there's no reason to ride around with like 30 gram Silka bar ends. It's ridiculous. I would say look no further than the Lucendis 3D printed bar ends. Those I've been using now for years, and I still keep reusing those all the time. Definitely A tier. If you have those 30 gram Silka bar ends, you can basically save 30 grams on just bar ends. So it's A tier. It's S tier, goddammit. I'm gonna change that. As for tape, there's, of course, I think you probably should aim for comfort and stuff like that before weight. But you can definitely save some weight on bar tape as well, of course, depending on where you're coming from. But the most super lights, which I've been using now for probably 3 or 4 years, I don't know how many rolls I've bought in the past. I don't really have a goal. I don't remember. I will put it on the screen, because I measured what my bar tape would be for, but it's not like I will go for this tape regardless of which lightweight or uber weenie I would try to build. So just one weight there, which I will put on the screen because I can't for the love of me remember what it was. Right, seat post of course depends on your bike if you even have any options there, but for weight weenie build or like a basic lightweight build, I would try to get that to around 100 grams. And when we're going changing those Uber grams for the Uber build, I would try to get that to 80 grams. And there's more and more seat post makers out there now that provide third-party options for especially like the Specialized and Factor and whatever else. So there's more and more options. There's no reason to stick with your 300 gram seat post anymore, I think. As for tier for the seat post, oh yeah, I think it's A tier, definitely. And lighter posts are probably more comfortable in that as well. Now on the seat post we need a saddle, and again, saddle I would put a lot of other stuff like comfort and fit before weight. So when it comes to tier, when should I put the saddle? It's probably C tier because yeah, it's not the first place I would look. I would definitely get the saddle that fits me, and a saddle, yeah, that's comfortable. But of course, if you're stuck on those metal rails, this might be a carbon version, a carbon rated version of that saddle. So it could be a good way to save a few grams for sure. For the lightweight build, I would say 100 grams is what I would aim for. Might have to sacrifice some padding, but if the saddle fits, I think padding is slightly overrated, if I can say that. For the Uber build, I would aim for that, yeah, I would get below 80 grams at least, and I know there's even lighter stuff out there, so yeah. Damn, this took a lot more time than I thought it would. Let's move on to the group set then. Now, personally, I don't live in Never Ever Land, I mean Shramland, so I can't really give any recommendations there. Now, where to put shifters and derailleurs, I would say it's hard. I can't decide. Probably put in C tier actually, because it's so damn expensive to upgrade. If you go from Ultegra to derailleurs, both rear and front and rear derailleur, you save 60 grams in total, but you have to pay double the price. That's hard. It's slightly hard to swallow, but just go for the derailleurs from the start and you don't need to think about that. But say if you're thinking about upgrading something, I think you only save 17 grams on the front derailleur and the functionality exactly the same. So that's probably like the front derailleur alone is probably an F tier. The rear you save about 43 grams on the rear, so that actually I can buy that argument. As for the shifters, it's kind of the same story, double the price there, and the same functionality. I think you save 32 grams going from Ultegra to derailleurs. You could like swap your clamps instead to derailleurs clamps on your Ultegra levers, and then you would save 12 grams, I think. Yeah, you save 12 grams by that, so you're basically only 20 grams lighter on derailleurs if you switch the clamps. Of course, you can go even lighter then and do like carbon clamps and stuff like that. So there's not really any target weight there. For me, it's, yeah, the derailleurs. Just go derailleurs and get it over with. Now for the crank though, when it comes to Shimano, just ditch the Shimano cranks for sure. There's no reason to ride around with a derailleurs crank, a heavy ass derailleurs cranks. Even if you really value that crisp front shifting, you can get other cranks and still use those Shimano rings, which is actually not that super heavy. The rings themselves, just a crank that's kind of an anchor. What I would aim for though, for like a normal lightweight build, crank including rings, I would probably aim for like 500 grams there. That's a pretty sweet deal. If you're looking for that Uber build, 450 grams, could save another 50 grams, I think, with some really light carbon cranks and carbon tie rings or something like that. And because there's a lot of cranks out there that doesn't really break the bank anymore either, I would actually put this crank probably A tier. Yeah. And like I said, even if you really value that crisp front shifting, keeping those Shimano rings for it, it's not that crazy overweight, even though you can go lighter, of course, which you should. Yeah. Last part of the group set, the brake calipers. And this, I've been so close many times to actually try some third-party calipers. But when you look closely, there's actually not that much weight to save. A few years ago, or a year or so ago, I was looking at the Lewis SLR calipers, which was quoted like 68 grams, I would like to say. But that's without pads and screws, like retaining screws, I mean, for the pads. And when I actually looked up the weight of the pads, they are much heavier than the Shimano pads, even with the fins on. So in the end, that combination would actually not save you more than like 10 grams or something like that. And the new Hope RX2, they are like 88 grams including pads, which is lighter than the race for sure. But again, we're talking like 12 grams saved. I wouldn't say I would never do that upgrade, because I've thought about it many a times. So I will put brake calipers in C tier. I will say though, I would upgrade Ultegra brake calipers to the Ace before I upgraded the Durillis, for example, because while the Durillis have the exact same functionality, the Dura-Ace brake calipers, I actually feel they work better than Ultegra brake calipers in my case. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but yeah, that unibody, I think they work better, and they have given me much less issues than my Ultegras had. C tier nonetheless. So that's pretty much it. We have some finishing touches. Of course, pedals. We need to include pedals in our weights. Get that into your head, stupid podcasters. I would probably put pedals in B tier or C tier. I would say B tier. Like, yeah, for the basic build, a couple of Dura-Ace pedals are indestructible and decent weight, not super lightweight or anything like that. What are the Dura-Ace pedals now? Let me check that. 230 grams, 34 I have written there on my original list. For the Uber build, I would probably look no further than the Expedo Sonic Shimano compatible SPD SL pedals, which are 185 grams. I should get us pretty far, I think. Okay, so bottle cages, we need a couple of those too. I would say, yeah, B tier. You can get some really light cages these days. The baseline cages for me has always been the Arundel Mandible, but those are almost, I would say, what are it, like 25 or 30 grams per cage now. For the Uber cages now, we should easily be able to get some cages that are 15 grams, if not closer to 10 grams a cage. But yeah, B tier, definitely some grams to save there. As for other accessories, we have computer mounts. That's a hard one. For the normal lightweight build, I will definitely want to get that below 20 grams. And if I'm building that Uber bike, I want to get that more closer to 10 grams. 10 grams might be tight, especially if you have a little bit of a bigger bike computer. But say 15 grams. Say 15 grams for the Uber build. Now, last but not least, we have all the kind of hardware tuning and stuff like that, like bolts and other small itty bits and pieces. And I think this, for me personally, is kind of A tier. It's just fun to tinker around with. Of course, 1 gram here, 1 gram here doesn't make much of a difference. None of this makes any difference, according to some people. But it's really fun to tinker around with, and it doesn't really break the bank. You can, of course, break the bank if you want to spend a lot of money on bolts and stuff like that. I did a video recently, you can see here on the Slayerograms channel, where I did go through just the brake hardware, like hose and nuts and bolts and stuff like that. And I saved 19 grams just on that alone, which is, yeah, it's pretty fun to tinker around with. So I would say for me, that's pretty much A tier. So even though I had notes to go by, I still managed to forget 2 very important parts. The first one is the cassette, and for me personally, this is one area where I'm currently not prepared to compromise on function. I'm sticking with the Shimano cassettes. Dura-Ace 11 to 34 for the light build comes in at 255 grams. For the Uber build, the 11 to 30 cassette is 220 grams. Now, I'm fully aware that you can at least get below 200 grams with an aftermarket monoblock cassette. However, not only is it a compromise on shifting, more importantly, they are noisier as well, which is honestly more of a sticking point for me. That's why I will put cassettes in C tier. The other part I somehow forgot about is the through axles, and here we definitely have some weight to shave. Of course it varies by brand and model, but Trek for example, the original axles that came with my Emonda was 70 grams. For a light build I got this down to 50 grams on the cheap, going with the classic eBay J&L axles. But if we feel spendy, we can cut that further with the new crop of like titanium and carbon axles. It will cost, but for the Uber build we can get below 30 grams without much trouble. But because this is an option for even the budget conscious, I think it's a pretty clear cut A tier. Okay, so take it away. Me? My god, that was much longer than I thought it would be. Right, I need to hand this over to Lord Weenie and see what it says.
What is the meaning of this?
It's the tier list.
What? Didn't you realize every single gram saved is S tier? Didn't you say you wanted to earn a seat on the Light Council?
Yes, I want to.
That you can't keep failing simple tasks like this. I will give you one more test. Fail that, and well, I think you can guess.
Yes, yes. I won't let you down. I promise.
Empty words. Prepare yourself.